Good morning and welcome to Tech Team Live on Tuesday. Today I have a special guest, but before I get to our special guest, our QR code for the month of April is Lindstrom1. Lindstrom1 will get you 10% off any Lindstrom item on our website. Once again, it's Tech Team Tuesday Live. We're on YouTube, Facebook, and if we have a good connection, we'll get on Instagram. We're having some technical difficulties, so I want to warn you ahead of time if we become unstable. It is all in the Ethernet. My guest today, though, is my esteemed colleague. Actually, he's more than esteemed. He's a hero of mine, Ronnie Mades. Ronnie, welcome to Tech Team Tuesday.
Thank you, Shane. Good morning, everyone.
Okay, Ronnie, you are technically, at this point, the second longest employee at Rio Grande, correct?
As far as I know, yes.
You started in 1980.
August of 1980.
I was 10 years old when you started working here.
Yeah, that's what everybody keeps telling me. They were born. I wasn't even born then. So.
I know. Most of the people who work here weren't even born when you started
Not at
here.
all, but it happened.
So tell us a little bit. How did that get going? How did you come to Rio Grande? What was the
Gee, let's see. Years ago, I was working for a company by the name of Maisels. They shut down. From there, I went to work with a friend of mine who owned a pawn shop. And one day he asked me to take scrap, I guess, back in the day, scrap to Rio to cash it in for him. So I took it into Rio, took it in for scrap. I saw one of the girls I was working with at Maisels. She was also working there, and she told me that they're looking for help. So I applied. I got hired the next day.
That's sweet.
So, yeah.
So technically, you're not a jeweler.
No, I dabbled in jewelry in high school. I took a 1-year class in high school on hand fabrication. No casting, just hand fabrication.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then once I was going to UNM, I quit doing that. And then when I started here at Rio, I got back into the swing of hand fabrication.
Well, it's important, I think, that people understand. In your 43 years at Rio Grande, you've done virtually every job except run the company here, right? I mean, that's not
Yeah.
that's. I'm not speaking out of turn. You've done
No.
everything. You've done inside sales, outside sales.
Right.
Give us a little bit of that background.
Yeah. Well, when I started at Rio, they put me into what was an area called will call, which was an inside sales. I worked there for a little while, for maybe about a month, I guess. From there, they asked me to go into the receiving area because one of the guys was leaving. So I went to the receiving area. From there, I went into purchasing. So I did purchasing for quite a few years, roughly 10 years, I believe. And from purchasing, I went into outside sales. Did that for a little while. And then I came back to purchasing. And during my purchasing time, I had my coach ask if I wanted to go into tech.
Mm-hmm.
Since a lot of the products coming back in that day were hand tools. So, and that's what I purchased, was basically just hand tools. So I've been in tech ever since 1999, I believe.
So you were in tech before tech was cool.
Yeah.
So the thing that I admire about you, that I find totally amazing, is you remember 99% of the item numbers for every item Rio Grande has sold since 1980. Because we have customers that'll call in and they'll say, I bought such and such machine back in 1991. And with these vague descriptions of what the machine are,
Yeah.
you'll say, oh, that's item number such and such. We sold that until such and such.
Yeah.
This was the manufacturer. You know, all of this information about all this equipment and everything. You're this walking encyclopedia of jewelry tools, because not only do you know our product, you know product from other companies that we have or haven't sold. It's the craziest thing.
Well, yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, back when I was purchasing, yeah, those are the numbers I was always constantly dealing with. Dealing with strictly hand tools. So yeah,
Yeah, but how do you remember all that? I
don't know,
can't remember my own phone number.
I don't remember yesterday anymore. So yeah, back numbers are easy for me to remember. Everything else is forget it.
Yeah, but you also remember the statistics. You remember the volume of the bowl on the mass finishing machine. You know,
Well,
it's
that's
the
yeah,
voltage, crazy things.
yeah.
Have you ever worked in repairs?
No, not at all.
You could
But I
though.
did. I mean, back in the day when we were on Anaheim, we had a gentleman by the name of Walter Judge doing repairs for us.
Yeah,
So I'd go back here and ask him a lot of questions, and yeah, he helped me out a lot on some of the repair items also.
yeah, because
But
the we test all of the. So for those of you who are watching, and I encourage you, get your questions in for Ronnie, because if you have any questions about any tools that have been made in the last 43 years and sold by Rio Grande, I dare you to challenge him with your questions. But one thing that we do here is we test new products that are coming in that we may or may not sell. But then if customers have issues with something, we'll pull something and we'll test it as well. You do a lot of that testing. And tell us a little bit the process you go through when you're testing things.
oh, I mean, yeah, we pull a lot of product review or product testing, even new products that come in. So we'll run it through the ringer. If it's designed to do a specific product or project, we'll run it through that project to make sure it is specifically that project. And I mean, we run it through the ringer. It's hammer it,
Well,
bend it,
you're known for breaking things.
hammer it, and break it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we run it through and make sure that it truly is a product that Rio wants to sell.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing that's amazing. One of my oldest memories of you, Ronnie, is from over a decade ago. Boy, man, it's probably been closer to 20 years now. It's a long time. But you're the person that got me into mass finishing. So I've always been a one-man band, do all my own fabrication, all my stuff myself and everything. And for 10, 15 years, I hand buffed everything.
Right.
And, one day I came in and I guess I was covered with buffing compound and probably looked a little
Ragged.
disheveled and ragged. Anyhow, I was talking to somebody in will call and they said, well, have you ever considered mass finishing? It'd take a lot of time off and everything.
Yeah.
And this guy named Ronnie Matas is starting to tell me about mass finishing. Then we set up an appointment and I came in, which our customers can do that
Right.
today. Our customers, through their sales agents, can set up an appointment. They can come in and we can demo things for them, show them how to use the tools and everything before they ever buy it so that
Right.
they know that it's the right thing for them. Because what you did for me was you took me back into manufacturing and you showed me the mass finishing setup that they had there, which when I saw it, I thought, this guy is crazy. I'm not buying all of this. It was like a multi-million-dollar mass finishing setup. And then you took me in and you showed me, you said, well, you get this vibratory finisher and you get this tumbler and this is the process you go through. And I have used that process ever since then. I've only made very small tweaks to it,
Yeah. Good.
but I buff almost nothing now. And I thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Yeah. It's
So-
an easy process.
So if you guys have questions about mass finishing or anything, call in or one day we'll have call in. But until then, submit your questions. So tell us a little bit about mass finishing, Ronnie. What when we're talking about mass finishing, what does that mean?
Mass finishing, it's a volume finishing process. It's not just one or two items at a time. It's volume, 20, 30, 40, 50. And it goes through several steps. Especially if you're doing a casted product where you clip it, you grind it, and you get it ready for the mass process, to where we do a deburring on the product, and from there we go into a pre-polish step, and then the last step of that process, 3-step process, would be your polishing. So when we do a deburring process, we run it with a like a cone plastic media, which will sand the surface, give you an even surface on the piece itself, give it to a satin look. And that process can take anywhere from 3, 8, 10 hours, depending on the condition of the casted piece. And after that, we go into the pre-polish, where we use a fine cut media, to where it takes away the heavy scratch pattern that's left behind from the deburring process. And that process, probably takes you about half the time, 3-4 hours. And then from that process, we go into our final polish. And the final polish, it's more of a dry polishing process to where we're using a red rouge or a green buff mixed with walnut shell or cob meal to do that polishing process, give you a real bright, almost hand finished process polish there. And that goes anywhere between, depending on what type of machine you're working with, anywhere between 24, 48 hours. And then you have your final.
Right. So the system that I use it's two machines. I have a vibratory finisher, and then I have a barrel tumbler, and I use the plastic media and the vibratory finisher. And for a long time, I bought the I have the what are the green ones? The green vibratory finishers.
That was the Raytech.
Raytech, yeah. I have the Raytech that's rated for stainless steel shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to run stainless steel shot in it. I burned the motor out in it twice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rated for it, but for a while I had a buckle company.
Yeah.
So I was polishing a lot of stuff going through there and everything. And so I really put them through their paces. But now for the burnishing process, which is the stainless steel shot, I use the barrel tumbler.
Right.
And I'll run it for 8 to 12 hours depending on what the deal is.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only difference in the process that you're describing and what I use. It's still...
Yeah, there's several ways to go about that. Stainless steel shot, you can go through the process I described, and then hit your last finish with stainless steel shot. It'll increase the polish just a little bit brighter.
Mm-hmm.
But you can go vibratory, then stainless steel shot, and do that process too. So
yeah, a lot of people think that when you use the stainless steel shot, you're actually hardening it, but that's really a misnomer.
Right.
It's not. Maybe on a microscopic surface level, you might be, but you're not gonna harden your jewelry items in the
stainless steel will only harden the top surface of your metal. It doesn't go all the way through the metal.
But that burnished finish is different than when you're using the red or the green rouge.
Right.
Those are still bright finishes, but it's not the same as that burnished.
No, that burnished look I think burnished gives you just a little bit brighter.
Yeah.
Brighter finish than the dry polishing process does.
I like to use it with stuff that I oxidize because it gives good contrast. So I'll before I put it in the steel shot, I'll oxidize it,
right,
and then put it in the steel shot. And a lot of times it'll remove the oxide layer and burnish that outside and give it that really nice contrast.
That nice dark look.
Yeah, the black and white contrast on silver.
On silver, right?
Yeah. So how'd you learn all about mass finishing? I mean, because you really do. Because the other thing is you're our SME on the what are the other mass finishing machines?
The centrifugal finishers.
Yeah,
the
Avalons.
Yes.
Those are amazing.
Yeah, centrifugal machines are nice, fast machines compared to vibratory systems,
right,
or even to rotary system. When you look at a process, you want to see how fast you can get through that process quickly, and centrifugal would be your fastest process, followed by vibratory, and then rotary. The barrel would be your slowest process throughout that system there. But yeah, with vibratory, it's you have a spinning plate at the bottom that's spinning your product more into, instead of going around the barrel, it's taking it up and down and inside the barrel, so it gives you a much cleaner look to the piece.
Those machines cost more, obviously, but they're much faster.
Right.
And if you're doing volume, they're definitely the way to go.
They are definitely, yeah. If you're doing volume of small components, if you're getting into the buckles like you were talking about a while ago, that may not be the system for you to work with. But if you're doing earrings and pendants and charms, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's a size limitation.
Right, size limitation.
So I've got an Instagram question from Darlene, and I apologize in advance. I'm gonna sound these names out as best I can. Darlene Belladonna. She wants to know, what's your favorite must-have tool for a slow-growing, self-taught silversmith?
A Fordham. It's always got to
I
be.
knew you were gonna say it.
It's always got to be the Fordham. I mean, that's a tool that everybody's looking for, and it's funny, you know. Like I said, I took classes in high school on hand fabrication, and we did everything by hand: sanding, filing,
Right.
polishing. And when we taught classes here, I did a class on hand fabrication, and that's the way I said it. We do everything by hand: filing, sanding,
Yeah.
polishing, and everybody would see that Fordham on the desk and they want to start working with that. And it said, but you really don't understand. I don't think you understand the full process of enjoying your creation there by having a machine do it for you.
Well,
So
the thing about the Fordham though is, um, there it's a very it's a rotary, it's a flex shaft.
flex
So
shaft.
the motor is up above and you have the flex shaft that comes down to the handpiece, and you can get a number of different handpieces and everything that will hold different tools. Sorry about that, everybody. We're experiencing technical difficulties. I hope you can hear us now and maybe even see us. I think where we left off before we got disconnected was the last question we had was from Steve Lawrence on Instagram. And I'm going to warn you, keep sending your questions in. We will answer them as soon as we can get them and everything. So don't stop sending your questions. We're going to continue with Ronnie. So once again, Steve Lawrence wants to know, Is a vibratory tumbler the same as a magnetic tumbler?
No, it's not. When you're dealing with a magnetic system, a magnetic tumbler has a magnet on the base of the unit itself, and the bowl has magnetic stainless steel pins. And the pins themselves are either zero point 0.5 or zero point 0.3 millimeters in length, and those help in burnishing and cleaning up your pieces before you go into the deburring process or before you go into your mass finishing process. A vibratory, if you're running stainless steel shot in a vibratory like the AV25S, that system runs just on regular stainless steel shot, and it's more of a slow rolling process that will burnish your components for you. It really doesn't do a cleanup process like the magnetic pins would do for you.
So the magnetic pins, a lot of times, they're not going to leave you a burnished finish.
No.
They leave sort of a high, like I call it, a high matte finish.
Matte finish, right?
But the vibratory tumblers, the finish you get is dependent on the media.
Right. If you use like balls, for example, will give you a nice
The ceramic.
not ceramic, no, stainless steel.
Oh, stainless steel. Okay.
With stainless steel, since we're talking magnetic finishers,
Okay.
magnetic finisher will only run with stainless steel and they're not ceramic. But if you're dealing with balls, you get a nice clean polished surface on the outside. If you're reeling with pins will allow you to get into the crevices of the
Right.
component and burnish or clean up that area in there. So with pins, it's sometimes you'll get pinning on the surface. So yeah, for burnishing, I'd go with the balls or ellipse.
So I know in-house, we use the magnetic pin finishers after the castings have come from cleaning, and they use the magnetic pin finisher to remove the last little bit of investment
Right.
that might be in the casting, and then it leaves it with a low matte finish. But they're using pins to do that.
Right, just to clean it up.
And the other thing is you have to keep in mind, this is something that people don't take into account sometimes, and I kind of learned the hard way, is when you are putting pieces in there, if you have crevices that are small enough, those pins can get trapped in there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then you got to pick them out or figure out a way to get them out. So it's a consideration.
You're right. You always want to consider your product that you're going to tumble with the media that you're going to work with, so to prevent that stuck product in there.
Right. Otherwise, it's a hand process of
Yes.
removing all that. And so on the vibratory tumblers, you can use on the magnetic pin finishers. What you're saying is you're limited to stainless steel media only.
Magnetized pins, right?
Right. You got to use magnetized pins.
Yes.
But with the vibratory finishers, you can use, depending on the finisher, you can use steel shot, but you can also use porcelain. You can use plastic. You can use dry walnut shell, corn cob, all these different things in those other finishers.
Right. You can, in the vibratory, you can use almost any type of product in there, depending on your process. Now, plastic media will not polish your pieces for you like stainless steel shot or
Right.
ceramic will. So, yeah, you have to know what your process is to determine what product you want to throw in there first to complete your look.
So I've got another question from Instagram. Fresh Cut Metals on Instagram. They are using a tumbler, and I'm going to just read this verbatim. For using tumblers, is it necessary to have one for oxidized pieces and one for non-oxidized pieces?
That can be a yes and no question. If you're using it for oxidized pieces, I would recommend that you clean your media every other day or after every process, because if you continue oxidized components with non-oxidized, that oxidation from your stainless steel shot will transfer on to your clean pieces. So if you want to have one for just strictly oxidized, that's fine, and then clean media for your clean pieces. But still, those oxidized your oxidized media will still have to be cleaned every other day.
So I'm gonna use a Phil Scott-ism.
Phil Scott,
You
yep.
don't brush your teeth without spitting.
That's right.
and that is how you have to think about. And when I'm talking about a tumbler, I'm referring to a barrel tumbler.
Barrel.
So when you run that tumbler, it's burnishing or polishing or grinding away at that piece on those pieces you have in there. But that stuff is not going in anywhere. It's trapped in the barrel with it. So what a lot of people make the mistake of, especially with the burnishing, is they'll just run that same stuff over and over and over, and they want to know, why is my work turning black?
Right, right.
Well, it's turning black because the the
You remove the
steel shot is
oxidation
dirty, and the liquids that you have in there, the side walls of the tumbler are dirty. You got to clean that thing out. I recommend every third time minimum.
every third time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you clean it out until the water runs clear.
You do, yeah. Most people will only clean it once. They'll run it
Right,
through there and say, okay, I cleaned it, but or even rinsing it off, they'll say it's clean, but it's
right.
not really clean. You have to use a cleaning solution
Yep,
on that steel shot
yep.
in order to get that black back to the nice, what is silver grayish
Yeah,
color
silver. Yeah.
that you want to have.
So the sunsheen cleaning material is what I use,
Right,
because it cuts the grease.
right. It does.
Yeah. So anyhow, that I hope that answers Fresh Cut Metals question. I have another question on Instagram from Bonnie Whitfield, and it says, "Has the stone already been set when you put it in the vibratory finisher?" In other words, if I understand her question correctly, she wants to know if you can run the vibratory finisher with the stones set.
If you're gonna polish it, yeah, that would be great to do that. I would not run it with plastic media at all because you have the possibility of scratching the stone. So for a drying process, yes, you can set your stone and polish.
So my I agree with you. It depends on the media completely,
Yes,
but it also depends on the stone, because
true.
we, sapphires, rubies, diamonds, they're very hard.
Right.
And I know that we do in cast in place
Hmm.
situations, you're going to run those through the finisher, and not really run into any issues.
Right.
But any other stones, you're going to run the risk of scratching them.
Yes, you will.
And especially things like opals and softer stones like turquoise and
Turquoise,
everything.
coral.
Yeah, you're really rolling the dice when you take and put something in a mass finishing situation.
Yeah, that's why I would just say only polishing would be your best
Yeah.
dry polishing process.
So I've got another question up here. But before I ask this question, because I think this question is going to correspond with our code for this month, Lindstrom 1. Lindstrom 1 will get you 10% off anything Lindstrom. And you probably bought the first Lindstrom things ever for Rio Grande back in the day. But the
I
question is from a YouTube watcher, Yvonne Padilla. What tool do you think you have recommended the most over the years?
Hey. Well, I always recommend a Fordham, of course.
Right?
But if we do hand tools, that's hard to say. I mean, it's Lindström, Swanströms, hammers. Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say.
What do you think? Number one, just pick one.
I'd go mallets or
Rawhide
rawhide
mallets.
mallets.
If
Yeah.
anybody hasn't seen Ronnie's how to prep your rawhide mallet video on our YouTube, you're on our YouTube live. After we're done with this live, go to the search bar and put in there how to prep your rawhide mallets. The best video we've ever done. Ronnie and I did it,
That was a fun one.
and it's fantastic. I've got a rollover question from last week, and I actually have the answer to it. But you had a lot to do with putting this together. Last week, Lisa Mack asked, "Do you have charts for the minimum ring shank sizes?" And yes, we do. They're in our Knowledge Hub on our website.
Hmm.
So if you go to the Knowledge Hub, but over the years, being one of the oldest tech team members, you helped compile an entire list of questions, because we've been asked a lot of
Right.
the same questions, and this is one of those. So what other questions have you been asked a lot?
Oh my God. We have soldering questions, which torch to work with, what regulators, mass finishing, of course.
So what's your favorite torch?
Well, actually, I have an acetylene torch and the little torch also. So,
Yeah.
recently I've been using the butane torch because I have small earrings that my girls have asked me to make for them. So I use that
Good.
one. But yeah,
So, so you're also our in-house expert on laser engravers. Tell us a little bit about the laser engravers that we sell that you specialize in.
we have a fiber laser engraver. We have a 20 watt, a 50 watt, and a 70 watt. Both all of them are great machines to work with. Easy to work with, easy to use, cost effective. Um, I don't. They're just good machines to work with.
Who makes them? Where do they come from?
They come in from Spain or Italy. I'm sorry, Italy, by the manufacturer by the name of Oratig. So they make a good quality machine. They also do our laser welders.
So, can you cut with those welder or with those lasers?
We can cut with them. When you're dealing with the 20 watt, you have a point 0.5 minimum material to cut with. The 50 can do 1.0, and the 70 is 1.5. If you're going to do a lot of cutouts, I would recommend going with the 50 or the 70. I would not recommend the 20 for heavy use and cutouts. The 20 can be used for a lot of flat engraving or engraving purposes. Your rings, your flat objects, and one or two cutouts a day or something like that.
So, I have a question about because I'm really interested in the lasers. I'm an engraver, and a lot of my fellow engravers and I have been discussing this. I consider them just another tool. A lot of traditional, quote unquote, traditional engravers, they think it's cheating and everything. But a lot of engravers are using the lasers to do their layout
Yeah.
and everything. And Phil Scott and I have been looking at this because he's been testing the X tool, which we're going to be selling soon, which is another laser engraver. But you were showing me on was that 18 gauge brass?
Right.
You engraved with the laser engraver nearly halfway through that.
Yeah, you can, dealing with, and that was with the 50 watt machine, of course. So yeah, you have the ability to do a light engraving or a deep engraving on the surface, depending on what type of look you want to achieve on there.
But I thought that would be fantastic for background removal. That's what I was thinking because
Yeah, it would be good because you have your pattern, and then like you say with your
yeah,
background, you have to go back in there and select that one area
yeah,
to do hatching on it.
because otherwise you're either removing it with a graver or you're removing it with a rotary tool,
Right.
micromotor or flex shaft.
hmm
But that laser everything was perfect and it was beautiful. So it's really something to consider. Do you have a favorite laser engraver? Is out of the ones that we have
I use the 50 a lot in our work
lab?
area.
Yeah,
So yeah, I play around with the 50. So I'd say the 50.
yeah. That's something that I want to pick your brain about more and get more opportunities to work with. But we're coming to the end of our time, even though hang on. I think I've got two more questions. Let me see here. Okay, I've got one from Lori Spain on YouTube. It says you can cut out when talking about Fordham. Can you explain why this is important to have? Why is it important to have a Fordham, Ronnie?
Fordham makes your process a lot easier. Your sanding, your grinding, your polishing. Like Shane mentioned a few minutes ago, there are a variety of tools that can work on that Fordham to do that process. So it's less fatigue on your hands when you're working with a Fordham.
Well, the thing that I find, I use the silicone polishing wheels a lot
Uh-huh.
because once I've done the removal of the material, those silicone polishing wheels really will do. I can get my final polish with it. Start with the coarsest and work all the way up to the highest polish.
Yeah, that's true. Silicones are best to work with. And you got to remember, you got to follow each step. You just can't go with coarse and then go all the way to the final
Right.
finish.
Yeah,
Skip all
because
those
you're
steps.
progressively removing the scratches.
Right, it's like
Till
sanding.
yeah, till you
So
get to that high polish.
right.
I've got another question from Sandy Parker on YouTube, and she wants to know what is the best torch and gas to use for reticulation.
Using the, oh my God. Well, depending on the size of the piece, I guess.
It does.
I'd probably go with the settling air or settling oxygen, because that way you have more heat coming out of that settling gas with that added oxygen. Propane isn't as hot as acetylene, so I'd go acetylene oxygen.
So this is kind of a trick question, I think, because I've done a lot of reticulation, and ultimately it's all about heat control.
Right.
Because the only time your acetylene is dirtier than propane. But once it's burning, once you set your flame, it's not oxidizing the way it is when you first start.
Right.
Everybody sees when you first light that acetylene torch, you get that big poof of black soot sometimes. The longer you work with it, the more you learn to adjust it so you don't get that. But it does happen.
Yeah.
But really, when it comes to reticulation, it's about heat and controlling your heat on the piece. It doesn't really matter what you heat it with, because you're gonna bring that metal to the point where it's near melting and it starts to draw up.
Crinkle.
And to crinkle. And then you want to take that heat away before it creates a hole. Because what you're doing is you're displacing the molecular structure and you're changing it.
Right.
So you're thickening it in some areas and you're thinning it in other areas. And that's where a lot of people get their frustration, is they leave the heat on too long. You end up with holes. And then when you do start to try to use it in a piece of work, you end up with uneven surfaces. But that's the nature of reticulation.
That is true, yeah. But like you mentioned a while ago, most people want to heat it right away.
Right.
You know, they don't realize that heat on one spot's going to eventually burn that hole through there. So
yeah, you got to move it around.
Heat it right away so you can get to that point. So, that's why I say acetylene will, and then like I said, moving it around to create that look you want to achieve.
Yep. And it also depends. I do mine on a Siderite pad because it reflects the heat back. And some people try to do it on a on a grate and everything, and that creates other challenges. But reticulation is kind of like jewelry in general. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but it ultimately comes down to heat control. I feel like it doesn't matter what torch you use. It's all about heat control. The bigger the torch, the more heat you're going to need in order to get a good job done. Wow. That's fantastic, Ronnie. Look at that. We've I have no idea how long we've been on here because of our technical difficulties in the middle. And I want to apologize to anybody who was interrupted by that. I encourage you to continue to submit your questions. If you have more questions for Ronnie, submit them. Our social media people, shout out to Shania. They will get them to Ronnie and he will get them answered. If you have more questions for Ronnie in particular. But if you have questions in general, please submit them to us. It really is our pleasure to be here on Tech Team Tuesday live every Tuesday to answer your questions. And I encourage you, next Tuesday, we'll be here at 11 Mountain Time. Ronnie, thank you very much. I appreciate all your knowledge and all your wisdom and your years of service here at Rio Grande, and I look forward to many more.
So do I. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun. I liked it.
Good.